Now, regarding the osmotic fragility test, we know that the osmotic fragility will be, this is done mostly with reference to the membrane disorders and also in cases of hemoglobinopathies also, because in sickle cell and thalassemia, there would be a decrease in the osmotic fragility. So we need to, if we go by the osmotic curve, then we know that the osmotic fragility is decreased in cases of thalassemia, trait, and in sickle cell anemia. And also, then we mentioned that different forms of membrane disorders also, mostly these forms, hereditary spherocytosis, the hereditary elliptocytosis, and this hydrocytosis or the overhydrated form of stomatocytosis, they show increased osmotic fragility. Decreased osmotic fragility is seen with the hereditary xerocytosis or the dehydrated form. So, and also then other cases of decreased osmotic fragility are the ones that I was mentioning, can be apart from these membrane disorders. They can also be hemoglobinopathies like thalassemia trait and sickle cell anemias, particularly after splenectomy. These and then in cases of severe iron deficiency anemia, and also in chronic liver disease, and also with the polycythemia vera, and in and so then causes of increased osmotic fragility are these membrane disorders. So mostly increased osmotic fragility is because of membrane disorders. And there will be hereditary spherocytosis, elliptocytosis, and this hydrocytosis form. And in hereditary elliptocytosis, in fact, there could be severe hemolysis even. And also then with other cases like with burns and poisoning. So even in case poisoning, so either there could be membrane defects that are causing increased osmotic fragility, which are these three membrane defects, but also in cases of burns and poisoning, or in cases of hypernatremia. So in those cases also, and also in cases of other RBC defects, so we have the membrane defects, and here we have mostly in the decreased osmotic fragility, we have mostly the membrane defect, which is just this one membrane defect, in fact, the hereditary xerocytosis, and then the hemoglobinopathies. And then apart the other systemic disorders, we have the severe iron deficiency or polycythemia vera. Both can present with decreased osmotic fragility and even chronic liver disease. Then with the increased osmotic fragility, we have membrane defects, and then also these other disorders like burns and poisoning. And then another thing related to these RBCs is the congenital dyserythropoietic anemia, which is CDA type 2. So CDA type 2 is also a differential for increased osmotic fragility. So regarding red cell disorders, here we have membranopathy, which is just one single, and then the rest is the hemoglobinopathies and then other defect. And in osmotic fragility increased cases, we have mostly all these membranopathies. And then there could also be this dyserythropoiesis leading to increased osmotic fragility, and which is the cause for the heme pass positivity also in these patients, and then also acquired defects like burns and poisoning. So this is an overview of basically the osmotic fragility test and how the different test is interpreted, and depending on the increase or decrease. And then also regarding the different how it is performed, basically this is there is the cells, this will represent, there's actually on the x-axis we present the percentage of the sodium chloride solution. So normally, if you see this normal curve is this narrow range, which is showing between 0.45 to 0.5. So 0.45 to 5 is the normal concentration at which cells will lie. So this is the normal percentage of sodium chloride in the solution. So between 0.45 to 0.5, a normal lysis will occur. But if it is beyond this, in case of if it is like 0.6 to 7 in this case, so then there will be increased osmotic fragility, and but if the curve shifts to the left, in which case there could be less than 0.45 and 3 and 2 values may and mostly like this. In this case, 50% hemolysis are occurring at 0.35. So in this case, the mean osmotic the osmotic fragility is decreased, and these are cases of mostly hemoglobinopathies, and also those the single membrane defect of xerocytosis that we know of. And now regarding the normal pattern, they have mentioned that with regard to hereditary spherocytosis also, this osmotic fragility is increased because then there is a right shift in the case of hereditary spherocytosis. But there is also a small population of resistant cells due to increased reticulocytes. So because of increased reticulocytes, there is a small population of resistant cells. So although the osmotic fragility is increased for most cases of hereditary spherocytosis, curve is does not there is not a proportional in shift to the right. This shift to the right in case of hereditary spherocytosis shows a tail of resistant cells due to increased retics. So after splenectomy, the microspherocytes remain, but the proportion of reticulocytes is reduced to normal, and the resistant cells are then not seen. So with hereditary spherocytosis, in fact, we can have two sort of two graph lines. This one they mentioned is just a similar one, but here there will be a tail of retics, resistant cells. So those resistant cells would not be hemolyzed. Hemolysis would not occur in those cells, and there is this tail of resistant cells. And after splenectomy, these retics, since they would not be there, this anemia would, this hemolysis since would not occur, and this would not trigger the reticulocytosis after splenectomy. So this tail can then disappear. So with regard to the clinical phenotypes of these hereditary membrane defects, we know that the most cases, in 60% cases, the deficiency is in the ankyrin and spectrin, and that is ankyrin spectrin complex, and that is both the alpha and the STPA and STPB may be affected, and ankyrin 1 has been implicated, and then in the 25% there is deficiency in the band 3 anion channel. And in the remainder, there could be deficiency of 14.4.2, which is the one which is more common in the Japanese population. And this defect in the ankyrin spectrin span 3 affects the vertical interaction. So it is appreciated that the genetic defect is a dominant form of hereditary spherocytosis in this case, the complete loss of the complex function is probably not viable. So homozygous children are not found. So they could be either the autosomal dominant form or the autosomal recessive form. In this case, compound heterozygotes are the only form. Those homozygous children may not be, this is not compatible with life. So double heterozygosity or inheritance of separate membrane defects does occur and is associated with usually severe hemolytic anemia. So the most common is the autosomal dominant form, and the less common are the and the most common amongst these autosomal dominant is the ankyrin deficiency. And recessive forms may also occur, but and they involve mostly the spectrin subunit, producing no clinical. So ankyrin is mostly the autosomal dominant form, and that autosomal recessive forms mostly involve the spectrin subunit. And then we have the recessive forms of and here the homozygosity produces a severe defect in hemolysis. Then we have the laboratory diagnosis, in which case, of course, the MCV will be there is the MCHC maybe in the diagnosis based on basis of morphology with those spherocytes, microspherocytes, which are smaller than the normal RBC with loss of central pallor. And the MCHC in this case is often increased above 35 gram per liter. But the presence of macrocytic reticulocytes usually results in a lower normal mean MCV rather than the true microcytosis. So although there is a microcyte, there is the MCV may be a sort of variable. There is supposed to be increased MCHC, but because of increased reticulocytes, the macrocytic reticulocytes present. So because of them, they could be a normal. The MCV may not reflect the true microcytosis. So there could be low normal MCV. So the MCHC is typically increased because they are spherocytic, but and they are microspherocytes, but the MCV is not correspondingly decreased. In fact, it may be normal or low normal. And the changes result not only from the reduction of surface area volume, but also from the slight dehydration of the hereditary spherocytes. So a number of variants have been described, and of course, depending upon the genetic defect. And then we come on to these tests that I mentioned, this osmotic fragility test, the acid-pied lysis test, and also the autohemolysis test. And another one is this test for SDS page for the protein abnormality, and then these tests for the eosin 5 malamide binding assay, which is done for the detection of band 3 defects. Now we have gone much over the osmotic fragility test, how it differentiates it is able to differentiate the hemoglobinopathies from the membranopathies basically, mostly, but you know that there are certain membranopathies that may cause a decreased osmotic fragility with the which may cause with a shift to the left, and there are other forms of osmotic fragility, as particularly with the dehydrated form of osmotic, the overhydrated form of hereditary stomatocytosis and leptocytosis and hereditary spherocytosis, and also in autoimmune hemolytic anemia. So this is one thing that we mentioned, that in other defects, apart from the membranopathies, we also have the autoimmune hemolytic anemia and CDA type 2, which can cause an increase in osmotic fragility with a shift, increasing osmotic fragility with a shift to the right. So the principle behind this test is to detect the membrane sensitivity to the lysis in vitro due to swelling caused by incubation in saline solutions of increasing hypotonicity. So as the membrane, so as the sodium chlorides from the normal 0.9% sodium chloride, as there is increasing hypotonicity, there will be lysis of cells. So when they are incubated at 37, this is the concentration, and then they have to be incubated at 35 at 37 degrees centigrade. The ambient temperature for this is 35 to 37 degrees centigrade, and this will cause by incubation at this temperature in saline solution of decreasing increasing hypotonicity, or we can say decreasing osmolality. So as the osmolality is decreased from 0.9, as we go to 0.1, there is decreasing osmolality, or either there is increasing hypotonicity. So it becomes less hypertonic. So there is increasing hypotonicity or decreasing osmolality. And then this hemolysis occurs, and this is measured at the 50% hemolysis is taken as a benchmark. For normal, it is mostly 0.45 to 5. And then for the hereditary spherocytosis, we have two forms of the curve. That is the one in which there will be a tail of resistant cells. So this is the tail of resistant cells, which are able to resist the lysis. And these are mainly due to reticulocytes, because the morphology, we know that from the morphology, the peripheral smear, this shows both these cells, which are going to impact, even confound our MCV values on the cell counters, because the reticulocytes will be macrocytic. So there are retics even, and then there are microspherocytes. So the peripheral smear shows both these macrocytic reticulocytes and these microcytic spherocytes. And because of this, the MCV may be low or normal, low normal. And it may not reflect the true decrease in MCV, although the MCHC is characteristically increased. Even maybe the MCHC may be more than 35, is above 35 gram per liter. But then based upon this peripheral smear, these two types of cells are seen as retics and spherocytes. And these are prominent even on this graph, because The spherocytes will be the one that will lyse earlier, but the retics, they will resist lysis and they will form this tail of resistant cells. So, and when this, after splenectomy, this tail of resistant cells goes away. So as soon as the lysis occurs, all these tails, they reach 100% lysis earlier, because here they reach 100% lysis after a further increase of the hypotonicity. But here the 100% lysis occurs. So the 100% lysis occurs earlier for after splenectomy, whereas for before splenectomy, because of the tail of resistant cells, there is this the 100% lysis will be delayed further till more hypotonicity has been reached. So for this test, we need to have fresh heparinized blood is to be taken, and it should be fresh with less than 2 hours of incubation, because we don't want complement activation to interfere with our test. So it should be fresh, it should be heparinized, no addition of EDTA. So this fresh heparinized blood is taken for this test. And this test can be performed, and this can be performed in 2 phases even. That is, one should be, it can be performed at fresh even, then it can be performed at 24 hours incubation at room temperature, or even at 48 hours incubation. And at this time, so this will then show the autohemolysis. In this case, no this 24 hours incubation would show after in this 24 hours incubation at 37 degrees centigrade, there will be increased hemolysis. And then at 48 hours, there is autohemolysis. So in the without adding any additive or this hypotonic saline, within 48 hours, so autohemolysis will occur. And this autohemolysis can be corrected with addition of glucose. This is this also helps us to differentiate this hereditary spherocytosis from pyruvate kinase deficiency, so another enzyme deficiency, in which case also autohemolysis occurs. But in the case of pyruvate kinase deficiency, no correction occurs with glucose. In fact, because it is an enzyme defect, correction occurs with ATP and not with glucose. So in the case of hereditary spherocytosis, the prolonged incubation test causes autohemolysis at 48 hours, but and this can be corrected with glucose. This is a differential with the pyruvate kinase, in which autohemolysis also occurs, but that is not corrected with glucose because it's an enzyme defect. It will be corrected only with the addition of ATP. So we were going through the various causes of shift to the right of the membrane hereditary spherocytosis and the autoimmune hemolytic anemia and CDA. And here we have the dehydrated form of spherocytosis as the membrane defect, and other hemoglobinopathies as thalassemia and sickle cell anemia. I think we have gone much into the causes of the shift of the curve, and also how we differentiate the different 2 forms of hereditary. There is 2 graphs of hereditary spherocytosis, pre-splenectomy and post-splenectomy, and also regarding the autohemolysis test, how this differentiates this hemolysis from the pyruvate kinase deficiency. In which case, with or without the addition of glucose, there is increased hemolysis. But in case of pyruvate kinase, with the addition of glucose, so in this hereditary spherocytosis, this is corrected with the addition of glucose. Whereas in pyruvate kinase, there is no effect of addition of glucose. And then we can do, for more specific testing, we can go on to protein abnormalities testing using the STS page electrophoresis, and also genetic defects can be detected using molecular genetic testing. And the eosin 5 maleimide can be used, in which case the eosin 5 maleimide, it binds to eosin 5 melamine binds to two molecules, that is the lysine 430, which is a part of the band 3, and cysteine molecule, which is the surface protein, particularly the rhesus blood group. Then 25% of the patients, they have this band 3 abnormality, and here the eosin 5 binding will be reduced by 25 to 30%. And this reduction is more prominent even with those forms that do not. This also occurs with all those forms that do not even lack the band 3 abnormality. So the screening test has to be used in conjunction with morphology, because Southeast Asian ovelocytosis, congenital dyserythropoietic anemia type 3, and cryohydrocytosis also give the reduced fluorescence. So this is another differential that needs to be kept into mind whenever interpreting the eosin 5 melamide binding, because this is decreased with hereditary spherocytosis and with hereditary pyropoikilocytosis also, and also the hereditary stomatocytosis, and so all these cause a decreased fluorescence. And the Southeast Asian ovelocytosis will also cause decreased Southeast Asian ovelocytosis and CDA type 2. So these other diseases, so all those causes that cause reduced fluorescence, there is a long list of them. So if we were to mention them, apart from hereditary spherocytosis, which causes decreased fluorescence, this could also occur with hereditary pyropoikilocytosis, which is a form of hereditary leptocytosis. So, and then we also have the other form is the hereditary stomatocytosis. Even that will cause decreased the cryohydrocytosis form. This will also cause the decreased fluorescence. Then there is also this CDA type 2A and Southeast Asian ovelocytosis. So in the stomatocytosis, it is the overhydrated cryohydrocytosis which gives the reduced fluorescence. So we have sort of 5 differentials for decreased fluorescence: hereditary spherocytosis, hereditary pyropoikilocytosis, this cryohydrocytosis form, then the Southeast Asian ovelocytosis, and the CDA type 2. And so morphology, so this test has to be done in conjunction with morphology to differentiate these different types of membrane defects. And in fact, there is increased fluorescence with the overhydrated form of hereditary spherocytosis. So the hereditary spherocytosis, in this case, they will be in the dehydrated form, and then this form, this has increased fluorescence. And with hereditary pyropoikilocytosis, so the least fluorescence is with hereditary pyropoikilocytosis, and in fact, increasing fluorescence is with this overhydrated and dehydrated forms of hereditary stomatocytosis. The cryohydrocytosis, which is a subtype of overhydrated form, this has decreased fluorescence. With autoimmune hemolytic anemia, we have normal fluorescence pattern, or they may be in some cases increased fluorescence, but otherwise mostly these are the differentials. With hereditary spherocytosis, hereditary pyropoikilocytosis, which has the least fluorescence, then hereditary spherocytosis, which has these 3 forms: the dehydrated, the overhydrated, and the cryohydrocytosis. So the one cryohydrocytosis is the one that has decreased fluorescence, the other have increased fluorescence. And then we have Southeast Asian ovelocytosis and CDA type 2. So we've gone through all these causes of decreased osmotic fragility and increased osmotic fragility. And with increased osmotic fragility is seen in all except now we know that increased osmotic fragility would cause shift of the curve to the right. In this case, hereditary stomatocytosis, hereditary spherocytosis, and hereditary leptocytosis, and autoimmune hemolytic anemia, they all cause a shift to the right, in which case there is increasing osmotic fragility. So this is seen in all except this is seen in this iron deficiency anemia. We know because we had gone through all the cases of decreased osmotic fragility. So there were all those cases of thalassemia, sickle cell disease, and in the hemoglobinopathies, in the membranopathies, there was this dehydrated form of stomatocytosis. And in the other defects, we had iron deficiency anemia and polycythemia vera, and also chronic liver disease.